As I sit in my room in Hoogezand at 00:46 on December 26, 2024, I wonder, do we not care or do we not want to? Despite our knowledge of the world's decay, we turn a blind eye. I'm a 19-year-old calling for change. Will anyone answer before it's too late?
Hi.
I am a human in this world, a dark yet colorful world. I am writing this message as a warning to everyone. I am a human in this world. It is currently 00:46 a.m. Thursday, the 26th of December 2024 in my room in Hoogezand, Netherlands. I am writing this because I feel anxious. I have questions that seem unanswered. I am calling out to the world, to you. Perhaps you can answer my question or join me in wonder about this world and how we treat it and how it treats us. I am composing this while listening to music. Aurora, Je Wardruna, Florence, Heilung, Adele, you name it. I hear Aurora singing about the bittersweet beauty of this world in The Seed, which addresses human corruption betraying their mother, their protector, their home, planet Earth. When the last tree has fallen and the rivers are poisoned, you cannot eat money, oh no. That is the message of the song, if I recall correctly. Our ignorance, our total and complete capacity to understand what we are doing, yet still nothing. Is that the right word? Nothing. People do weep and shout, they do warn, yet nothing seems to change. What are we doing? Are we not capable of feeling the consequences of these events? Are we completely ignorant of them? Because forests are dying, rivers are being polluted, and there is more plastic than fish in the sea. The air is filled with things we cannot even breathe safely. Do we not care or do we not want to? This world is dying. We know that future generations will not survive if we continue on this path. And not only humankind, everything. There is only one Earth. One, we should be careful with it, right? Or does nature always find a way to prevail? Even if it does, just look at a fox, an elephant, a cow. Observe them while listening to The Seed by Aurora and tell me you do not feel the urge to change everything you know. Because that is realistically what we need to do, change everything. But we cannot, we want to, yet we do not even try. Why is it that when someone is vegan, vegetarian, or adheres to any similar lifestyle, they are often seen as weak, as something undesirable, as an unwelcome change by many at least? Or is this just my experience? They are at least trying to help this world. I am not suggesting that it always works, nor am I implying everyone should adopt this lifestyle, but at least they are making an effort. They want to change their habits for themselves, for the Earth. No, not just for themselves and not only for the Earth. For us, keep that in your mind, US. Humans, we should not separate ourselves from the rest. We bear as much responsibility for this world as a snail chewing on a leaf inside a tree across the street, and we will feel and experience the consequences precisely the same. We are surrounding ourselves with walls, large walls of concrete and stone, like the wall in George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones. We are placing all of our worries behind the wall. Do not look back, or else you will see the harsh reality of it all. All the while, we rot away inside our own metal and money ecosystem. We are trying to survive, not hunting for food or a safe place, but hunting for money and recognition. Which is normal, right? It is our human way of surviving. But when everything collapses, economy, money, humanity, and survival as we know it, only then will we realize that we cannot eat money. And it will collapse. It will. I fear that moment, but I also wish it happens soon so that we are at least not completely wrapped in our own beliefs, far, far away from the real world. I am a human in this world, just like many others. I draw quite often. I am writing my book, a narrative that will also encompass all I have expressed in this message, this warning, consolidated into one story, one tale. It will be challenging to write, but I am trying. That is why I'm currently writing this in case my story, my tale, never sees the light of day. Because I need this and the world needs it too. This world needs to heal, but first, we must understand it and primarily understand ourselves. That is why I warn you now at 01:14 a.m. on Thursday, the 26th of December 2024, in my room in Hoogezand, Netherlands while listening to music. Aurora, Adele, Je Wardruna, Heilung, you name it. Heilung is a band composed of individuals from various regions and countries: Germany, Norway, Denmark, among others. Their songs are inspired by ancient texts and artifacts from the Iron Age and the Vikings, aimed at reconnecting with the earth and our ancestors. Isn't that somewhat sad? It disturbs me to think that we require music to reconnect with the earth. It's beautiful, it's harsh, but most of all, it's wrong. If we need music to reconnect, why is there such a scarcity of these kinds of bands and artists? There are many, but not enough. Why do we require certain things to feel wild? To feel like part of this world, the real world? Why must we actively do something to belong? I want to always feel that way, connected to myself, the earth, and my essence. Do not misunderstand me. Music has always been and will always be a way to feel good, to feel oneself. But we have lost so much about this world and so much within it, our natural state. Why did we drift so far away from the real? Was it easier, more entertaining? Do we abandon our primal selves to feel better, yet we forget that this new world is not better for everyone? Nonetheless, it is nearly impossible to leave this concrete jungle behind as a human, not in every part of the world but in far too many. I wonder if people truly enjoy this world more than the real one. Maybe we do not know better, but we work for others. Millions of years of evolution only to sit behind a desk for hours. We toil to survive, yet we primarily sustain the rich, we feed them, we earn money for them. I am not suggesting that the rich are bad or do not deserve their wealth, as many times it is indeed fairly earned. But do we recognize that we work to survive? Or do we merely do it to satisfy our egos and our desire for more? Consider the capital from Susan Collins, The Hunger Games. A vast city sustained by the pain of others, the labor of others, the suffering of others. They are the complete opposite of primal survival, yet I feel like it is also very much the same. The people behind the walls of the capital have lost all their naturalness. They rely entirely on makeup, lies, and ego. However, they enjoy witnessing humans murder each other in a colossal arena. It is normal propaganda, right? Doesn't that sound remarkably similar to an expected human life on Earth? We deceive ourselves, cloaking ourselves in false beliefs. Because we are expected to, do we even realize what we are doing? We are centering around ourselves, we seem indifferent to the rest. Everyone always laments the plight of poor individuals in distant countries, but helping them, only a few take action in that regard. I understand that it isn't always feasible to help, but how can we wear clothes produced by young children in factories under pressure and in unhealthy environments? Do we not care? We do, but like with the seed, we simply look away. How is it acceptable that on the news we hear about people dying, impoverished nations needing help, etc., and then a few seconds later cheerful music plays, happy music covering the world's darkness? Oh no, people are dying, we will distract you with some upbeat music, and then you will act as if nothing is happening, right? We do not question the norms we are expected to follow. Why? Why is it normal and acceptable to farm animals as if they are worthless? Why is it acceptable to engage in actions that have negative consequences for others? I am a human in this world now at 19:03 p.m. on Thursday, the 26th of December 2024, in the living room of my grandparents in Oud Pekela, Netherlands, Christmas, just as it was yesterday, eating from a table overflowing with food. It almost feels wrong to eat it. So many others could benefit from this. People who do not inhabit the capital from The Hunger Games by Susan Collins. Unlike me. I possess certain privileges, certain expectations that others would consider luxury a blessing. But they deserve it too, right? Why is it that where you are born dictates whether you are rich or not, whether you are safe or not, whether you are happy or not? Was it meant to be so by forces humans cannot comprehend? Was this world meant to encompass so much suffering, so much hardship? And if that is the case, why do we not take action? If we are going to act as though we are so distinguishable from nature because we are safe, good, kind, and so human, then why not do it correctly? Why not genuinely be what we claim to be? But most importantly, why listen to their deceptions? Or are we so distinguishable due to other traits, the complete opposite, because we are so harsh and cruel, so cold, because of our ability to completely disregard the problems of this world, well, actually our world, our ability to be so disconnected from others, others who simply need that connection? Are we too afraid to confront the truth? We are, so we conceal it, but in reality we do not hide it, we merely let others bear it. Are we afraid to lose the little we possess? We are, because all we have are our own beliefs holding us together. If those beliefs dissolve, we will indeed confront reality. But reality is too overwhelming, too immense, so great that I do not even comprehend it. Do we dislike people such as vegans and activists because they illuminate our flaws? They shine a light on our sins. Where there was once a shadow of norm, now there is a light of change, a change many are not prepared to face. I am a human in this world, but do not forget I am also its future. A future I would like to share with others in a green, living world. Not a factory, smog, and pollution-ridden world. Not a world of hatred and endless fights for survival, even if it requires sacrificing comfortable clothing or extra snacks at Christmas. So please be careful with it, because it is not ours to destroy. We inhabit a world so strange at that, only when you really start to think about normal things in life, do they reveal themselves as odd. I am a human in this world in a car on a road in Drenthe, Netherlands at 13:58 p.m. Wednesday, the 8th of January 2025. Happy New Year. Do we say happy because we believe we are, or do we pretend to be? I do not know. How can we live while having to work for someone else every day? Each day we contribute to this dystopian world. We keep building it upward, making it worse. We construct it so high that eventually we cannot see the truth beneath. I do not understand why we harbor so much hatred. Does it provide us with a better perspective on our own situation, or does it diminish it, compelling us to sympathize with ourselves? Do we pretend everything is fine to make our lives appear better? Does the feeling of love only give contentment because we know others lack that satisfaction? Why do we aspire to something, even though we are aware it will ultimately amount to nothing? Why does everything feel like a game? Be sad right now, they will understand and empathize with you. Why is truth not sufficient, not beautiful enough? Because it isn't. It all feels like a grand performance. We can hardly exhibit our genuine feelings without them being ridiculed or scarred. Why are we not good enough? We always point to the past. Look at how cruel we were, look at how foolish we were. But we did not become less. We changed the way we embody those qualities, the manner in which we act and react to them. I am a human in this world aboard a bus on the road in Groningen, Netherlands at 19:16 p.m. on Wednesday, the 16th of April, 2025. It has been a while that felt like nothing. Yet perhaps it was nothing, only about 2 months. That's trivial compared to a lifetime around 80 years. Years filled with suffering and pain, but also with beauty and growth. A life. When it all concludes, what remains? Darkness. Darkness is something. It's the absence of everything else. What if that absence were also non-existent? What then remains? What is at the end of this journey? Are there gates, pits, roads, perhaps another journey? Would that journey also entail suffering, wars, conflicts, humans? Does everyone have their own conclusion? The hummingbird in the forests. Will it encounter an end of flowers and leaves, or is a body merely something of this journey? Will I have a peaceful end when this journey culminates? Will I find rest? Was this world created solely for survival and anxiety? Why do we live? Why do deer flee from lions and eat and reproduce to survive? Why is it instinctive to survive and not to live, to enjoy? Or is the ultimate purpose of instincts to enjoy, but first one must survive? Have we humans exceeded survival? Have we attained enjoyment? Is this enjoyment? And why must the world be at stake for our enjoyment? Or is this merely another layer of survival? Why do we survive? Why do wolves kill and horses fight? What is the purpose? Perhaps you can enjoy while surviving. To love, laugh, and eat. I do not know why, but it seems worth fighting for. Is it instinct? Even when everything seems dark and lifeless, I still yearn to struggle and prove the doubters wrong. Yet in the end, do I stand with others or with myself? Or will I eventually fall deep into the dark chasms of truth? Oh, is that it? Instinct is merely a notion to keep us alive, to prevent us from being indifferent, to keep us from the truth. What compels us to stay alive even in this world? What or who created instinct, created the urge to live, the struggle for survival? Yet in the end, do we stand together or alone? Is the force that motivates us to live good or bad, right or wrong? I am a human in this world and I inherit this world. We must be careful with it. We, the children, are your heirs, your successors. We inherit your place in this world, and we, as crucial, powerful, and influential beings, will ultimately shape this world. We will occupy your positions and transform what you have established. I am you from the future, but hopefully better. I am the next to shape the world, and I hope to do good with my power. I claim my throne, yet my aim is to dismantle it, not to elevate it higher and higher above this earth. I will tear ourselves down before succumbing to our falsehoods. Story 2. Growing up in a conservative Midwest home, my father's discipline taught me to fear authority, while my sister's violent outbursts made me her target. You don't need to feel safe, my mom insisted. Now at 42, I finally care about me and know I'm enough. What will they think next? I am a 42-year-old female who grew up in a conservative Christian home in the Midwest. I mention religion not to assign blame or to excuse anything, but to provide context. I have 3 older brothers, 1 older sister, and a twin sister, who is technically younger than I am by an hour and 10 minutes. My father was the typical head of household type. He worked long hours, sometimes holding 2 jobs, devoted his time, talents, and resources to those in need, and was always fixing something, either at home or on a vehicle. However, he was also very strict and adherent to the law and believed in physical punishment as well as hard labor as a form of discipline. I loved him, and I still do, but he was frightening. He had limited patience, limited kindness, and limited understanding when it came to us children. To everyone else, he was a gentle giant, a genius able to solve unusual problems, and an admirable asset to the church. Even though he would physically punish me, I learned accountability. It made the punishments easier to accept when I understood that I had indeed broken the rules and deserved the consequences. On the other hand, the punishments felt worse when I realized I did not deserve them. I do not know how the window got broken, I promise. You did it, you or your friends, I know you did. My mother was the typical stay-at-home mother. She was very sweet to everyone, only spoke when spoken to, knew all the right etiquette and manners, but did not know how to refuse requests. She was a major pushover. Appearances mattered more to her than reality. Even as a child, I recognized that my mother was shallow and vain. In public, when people were watching, she was loving and supportive, but behind closed doors, she was distant and nothing like the person she portrayed herself to be. As I grew older, I realized my mother was also very insecure and extremely judgmental. For example, I was a nerdy tomboy who enjoyed climbing trees, playing video games, and reading books. I once talked to my aunt about the video game The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. When my mother overheard me, she insisted that I must have watched my brother play it because I did not play video games. I contributed to cooking and cleaning, though I only did that when it was a punishment imposed on me. I argued that I had bought the Nintendo 64 and the game with my own money, and of course I played it. She accused me of lying. Another example is that I had two best friends who were boys. I did not have any romantic feelings for them, and if they had any toward me, they were respectful enough that I never realized it. My mother despised these boys and that I spent time with them. What kind of girl hangs out with boys? What would people think if they saw you? I argued that the boys were my friends and that anyone who observed us would see I had friends. We would argue about it every time. I could share hundreds of similar stories, but my goal now is to paint a picture. To further illustrate, my youth was an emotional wasteland. We were shamed for being proud of our achievements. After all, pride comes before a fall. We were taught to be humble and we would be blessed. We were shamed for needing love. We were told that God's love is all that matters and that human love is futile. My father used the law as an excuse, while my mother's insecurities and judgments suggested she did not understand what positive emotions looked or felt like. She could emulate them in public, but that was as far as her understanding went. My brother, who is less than 2 years older than I am, I will call Jake. Jake is intelligent and creative. I regard him as a genius, probably the only real genius I know. However, when we were young, he was cruel. I would often receive random beatings, nothing more than 2 or 3 quick but hard punches, a limp, a snake bite. They never left more than a bruise, and he avoided my face. Later in life, he acknowledged his actions, though he never apologized by explaining that he was jealous of the attention my sister and I would receive. What attention, huh? Regardless, I would cry and run to my mother to tell her what he had done. Initially, she tried to punish him, but everyone knew that my mother was a pushover and a people pleaser, so her threats were meaningless. I learned not to involve my father because he believed my brother would not just hit me without reason. I must have done something to provoke him. As a result, we both would get punished. Bring the belt. If my father did catch my brother and realized I had not provoked him, and my brother was the only one punished, the next few times my brother beat me would be much worse. So everyone quietly agreed that involving my father would not resolve any issues. Eventually, my mother admitted she had no power over Jake and could not punish him. She advised me not to cry, saying, "He is looking for a reaction, so if you do not cry, he will not get a reaction." That advice was poor. Now to my twin sister, whom I will call Jackie. My brother used to beat her too, until one day when we were 7 or 8, she snapped and fought back. She had a purse filled with matchbox cars, the ones made of real metal and probably lead paint, and started swinging it at him. That day, she defeated him soundly. It is still a story they both recount to this day, and it is something they take pride in. However, it marked the beginning of something dark in my twin. From that point forward, she joined my brother in attacking me. By the time we were 11 or 12, she would assault me on her own. I believe it began at school. She had leftover chili, pasta, or something red that needed to be microwaved. On her way back to her desk after lunch, we ate in the classroom at that school. She tripped and spilled her food. Everyone laughed, including me. She then attacked me. It involved punching, kicking, pulling my hair, pushing me to the ground, and pummeling me. The teacher managed to pull her off of me, but I do not know if he informed my parents about the incident. She never faced any consequences for it. And that became my routine, a life lived in fear, as at any moment my sister could snap and violently assault me. Occasionally, if she had something available, she would use weapons, a pair of scissors, a knife, a large stick, or a purse full of matchbox cars. Initially, the situation was just between us, and as long as my father did not learn of it, nobody took action. Sibling rivalry, they would say nothing to be done. They will grow out of it. By the time we turned 14, my sister had started to attack others, even adults. She was suspended from school at least 3 times in 1 year. The school would threaten next time it will be expulsion. But they never followed through. She had also begun stealing and had been caught doing so. She was smoking cigarettes and marijuana, sneaking out of the house past curfew, and hanging out with boys. She had also started self-harming and claimed to be suicidal. If her punishment was deemed too harsh, she would grab a knife and cut herself in front of our parents. Well, just our mother, since we did not involve our father in these matters. He only made things worse. Consequently, my mother surrendered to my twins' demands, giving her anything she wanted, anything within her power to provide. Thus, my mother, unable to control my sister's destructive behavior, placed me in charge of her. If Jackie got caught smoking, I faced punishment for not preventing it. If Jackie sneaked out and got caught, I was punished for failing to talk her out of it. All I learned from that was how to lie for my sister and cover for her. But because I was considered my sister's keeper, I was forced to accompany her everywhere. If I had plans with my friends, it did not matter. I had to go with Jackie. I was to bring my friends along too. Let them see what a crazy person she is. No, thank you. As such, I had to go with Jackie wherever and whenever she wanted. I continued to be a target of physical abuse. However, after the third threat of expulsion, my father finally got involved. My sister had thrown another boy to the ground, beaten him with a baseball bat, and slammed his head against the ground. He required medical attention, including stitches. His parents agreed not to press charges if Jackie went to therapy, so my parents enrolled her in therapy. She was diagnosed with manic depressive disorder, which I believe is now referred to as bipolar disorder. However, she was not prescribed medication. She only attended individual therapy and family therapy with my parents. I found her diagnosis questionable. Even at 14, I could see that my parents and family had a profoundly negative impact on Jackie. I hated her and lived in constant fear of her actions, but I also understood her. I did not blame her. In fact, she went through 3 therapists in 2 years, likely because they consistently pointed to my parents as the source of her anger issues. Eventually, my father declared that therapists were atheists sent by the devil. My sister learned to present herself as a good, gentle Christian when people were observing, even if she remained the spoiled rage monster she was at home. As long as we appeared to be a put-together family, it did not matter that we were not. I have hundreds of stories regarding my assaults and abuse narratives detailing how my sister's insecurities jeopardized my safety and well-being. But who has time for that? I did express to my mother that I did not feel safe with Jackie and that I was afraid she would go too far. I mean, she had attempted to kill me several times by that point. My mother insisted that I needed to stay with Jackie to keep her safe, even if it was from herself. I tried reaching out to other adults, teachers, and family members, but my mother's ability to appear normal was too convincing. Or perhaps my stories sounded too wild. In any case, I did not receive help but instead faced anger from my mother. Stop telling lies, that is not how we live and you know that. Oh really? Because I distinctly remember a time when my sister came at me with a knife and I was struggling to defend myself and you mother walked into the room. We made eye contact. You turned around and left. You know I am not lying. After I turned 18 and moved out, I began telling others about how terrible my childhood was. My mother and sister would always claim that I was overreacting, insisting that it was not that bad, that Jackie and I were merely wrestling playfully and that no one's life was ever in danger. Their gaslighting worked. I lived with the belief that my sister's life was more important than my own, that my feelings and experiences did not matter, and that no one would believe me if I spoke the truth. I also dealt with depression for a long time. Earlier this year, my depression became very severe. I felt suicidal more than I ever had before. I felt as though I was falling into a void with the ground quickly approaching. Even though people were telling me they cared about me, I did not feel valued. I realized I had to change my mindset before hitting rock bottom. I started taking antidepressants and attended therapy. My first significant breakthrough: I care about myself and that is sufficient. At 42, I learned that I love myself and that it is acceptable to love myself. I learned to identify my abuse. I learned to articulate my truth. Recently, I passed a state-certified exam to obtain a state-approved license. It is a challenging test and most people fail the first time. I passed. I learned that it is okay to take pride in my accomplishments. I learned to respect myself and I have established boundaries that I never had before. I am also learning to uphold those boundaries. Shortly after I began therapy, I told my father about it. He suggested I speak with our church's pastor. I told him that sometimes science is more helpful than a sinful pastor. After all, God gifted us with science. Since then, he has been very distant. My father, mother, and sister, yes, they were still in my life this entire time. I have been gaslit, misjudged, invalidated, and subjected to countless other descriptions designed to make them feel good about themselves at my expense. Knew that I had this stressful exam. I informed them of the dates multiple times. They did not reach out afterward to see how I performed, and I am done extending that effort for them. My mother did reach out, commenting on the distance between us. I told her I am healing and would appreciate space and respect while I go through this process. She believed the new job that accompanied my exam success was very taxing. I clarified that it was not the job, I need time to heal. She sends me I care and my beloved daughter memes through Facebook. My sister reached out with, "Are you mad at me?" I replied, "No," and she responded, "You do not have to lie to me." I should feel angry, but I do not. I understand that they are who they are, and until they choose to change, there is no reason for me to argue with them. I am moving on with my life. I no longer care whether they care or not. The truth is they never cared, but I do, and I am enough. If you have made it this far, I appreciate you. I am not sharing this story to seek validation. I am not looking for sympathy. I am simply expressing my truth and attempting to heal in the process. I am open to advice from anyone who has experienced similar situations, or if you wish to share your story, I am willing to listen. Thank you. Story 3. My brother Ashton's girlfriend Sarah turned our house into a war zone. "You're not man enough," she screamed at him while he crawled through a hole she kicked in our front door. After the police were involved, I packed my bags and left the chaos behind. What a mess. Hello everyone, this post will primarily serve as a means for me to express my feelings regarding a specific situation. I will change the names involved because I prefer not to have my family discover this. I hope you can understand my perspective and that I can articulate the incident clearly. By way of introduction, we were all young in this situation. I am still quite young, only 23, and I believe everyone around us is in their early 20s. This entire ordeal began during my college years. While I was navigating my first year, my family was going through significant changes. My father and stepmother divorced, they moved into an apartment complex and lived in separate apartments, and the middle child, Ashton, was allowed to take over the rent at their previous house. He decided to move in there with his girlfriend, Sarah, and his best friend. Honestly, I was facing challenges in college. I won't claim that I was miserable or that everything was awful, but I was being kicked out for failing to attend the sermons sufficiently. After spending about a month in the summer dorms, Ashton invited me to move in with them and even help transport all of my belongings to their home. This transition seemed promising. I didn't have many issues with Ashton, his best friend was quite amiable, and I thought his girlfriend was tolerable. This is where things began to unravel. Once I had settled in and switched to the local fast food chain where I had been employed, it was a fairly enjoyable time. We all worked nights except for Sarah. She did have a job initially, but she eventually quit due to her mental health challenges. To my knowledge, she has not worked since. We all got along well, there were no conflicts, and overall it felt quite relaxed. I cannot precisely explain what transpired since I worked independently. However, I am aware that tensions were escalating between Sarah and the best friend. They both fought for more of Ashton's time. It didn't appear serious while I was observing, but later I learned that she was unhappy with Ashton spending time with his best friend. I suppose that is when the tensions started to build. As I continued living there, I noticed that the situation was deteriorating. My brother and his girlfriend began arguing. These disputes would not have been too concerning if they had not resulted in damage around the house. They cracked the television after arguing about money, and my brother even damaged the front door by kicking it to emphasize a point. This occurred after he had a physical altercation with her at a gas station and nearly got beaten up. Additionally, she had attempted to overdose on her medication, resulting in a significant hole in the drywall. It felt as if I was living with two tornadoes who were wreaking havoc on the house. Honestly, had I not spent as much time out of the house or sleeping, I likely would have departed much sooner. I vividly recall an incident when they began fighting and I tried to intervene. Naturally, they told me to go to my room as if I were a child rather than his older brother. To be fair, I typically remained passive and silent, so I didn't always attempt to speak up. Instead of just retreating to my room, I decided to walk the 2 miles to my job in the summer heat. I live in Texas, enjoyed a good meal, and relaxed for about 2 hours. Afterward, my brother texted to ask where I was so he could pick me up. The ride back to the house was quite uncomfortable. Nevertheless, this discomfort did not overwhelm me personally, so I chose to stay. It was afterward that things became unbearable. I cannot recall who instigated what, but it ultimately does not matter. Sarah had procured some inexpensive yet delicious meat for the house. It was supposed to last for a while, given how much I remembered seeing. However, one day she claimed that the best friend had thrown away all of the meat they had bought and that he was trying to provoke a conflict. This is my subjective view, but I do not believe any of that. He was a laid-back guy, loved watching anime with me, and we even went to my workplace to eat together at one point. Well, she did not handle this well. She genuinely went berserk on his door, stabbing it with whatever object she could find and writing "Welcome home, bitch" with some sort of condiment. It was insane. I believe that was when he decided to move out, or at the very least, take most of his belongings back to his mother's house. I say most of his stuff because Sarah thought he had not received enough punishment. While he was at work, Sarah ransacked his room. She scattered dirty cat litter everywhere, emptied the trash can onto his bed, and even tossed around a half-eaten cake. I did not witness most of the chaos because Ashton returned home early to clean it. He understood that his best friend would go wild if he saw that. I cannot fathom why the best friend continued to stay there, but he was apparently loyal to Ashton. That would all change after the major incident. I had just returned home from work after a long night shift, having walked back as well. This exhaustion left me in a vulnerable state. Hours later, my father shook me awake to check on me. Apparently, Ashton had gone to our parents to express his intention to end his relationship with her and seek some space. While he was doing that, Sarah was becoming frantic at our place. She was hastily gathering her belongings and becoming irate. Eventually, our father decided to visit to check on me and ensure she was not engaging in any harmful behavior. After hastily gathering whatever she could, she left in a rush. Most of her belongings remained in the house, and she had even forgotten her phone. It was clearly her way of ensuring she could return. When she left, our parents instructed us that if she returned, we should contact them and they would come by. They then departed and the rest of us decided to tidy up around the house. Ashton looked despondent while cleaning and crying. To give him some privacy, the best friend and I went to Walmart to purchase new locks. As quickly as we could, we changed the locks so she could not enter whenever she pleased. After all that, we all returned to our rooms until we heard Ashton yelling from the living room. Sarah had come back. She was yelling at Ashton through a massive hole she had kicked in the broken front door, berating him for not being man enough and questioning where his courage was. That phone call was one of the swiftest I had ever made. I called my mother, informed her that she was back, to which she replied that they were on their way. It was a short drive, but we were left alone with the madness for a little while. At that moment, my anger reached its peak. I yelled for her to leave and demanded that she get out of our lives. In a fit of rage, I turned around and punched a deep hole in the sturdy wooden wall. That was when the adrenaline subsided and I found myself immobilized, collapsing to my knees. Eventually, our parents arrived. My father remained calm, stating that she needed to leave while Sarah insulted him directly. Ashton walked to the end of the driveway, weeping over the situation. Sarah then redirected her anger toward my stepmother, hurling insults at her. That was when my father lost his temper. He began to shout back. In a moment, Ashton rushed in, getting in my father's face and yelling at him for raising his voice at his girlfriend. Really? The same person who had been crying earlier about wanting to leave her was now defending her. My father insisted that they both needed to leave and find somewhere else to stay. The rest of us retreated indoors, feeling shaken from the confrontation. My brother had a brilliant idea, though. After being told to leave, do you know what he did? He crawled through the hole Sarah had made in the door to continue arguing. The next few minutes were chaotic. My father started to hit Ashton on the head in frustration. Everyone else got involved. I made the smart decision to step outside and call the police. By the time I finished explaining the situation to them, I rushed back inside and separated my brother from our father. Neither was injured, though I was sure both would have bruises. Around that time, the police arrived. We all had to provide statements explaining our sides of the story. Somehow, the police directed everyone except Ashton and Sarah to leave the premises. Therefore, I decided to stay with my father for the next few days to maintain my composure. After perhaps 3 days, I returned to the house. Naturally, I still paid rent, so I wanted to go back. Upon entering, Ashton and Sarah put on the most exaggerated performance, expressing their appreciation for me and how highly they regarded me. This came after how they had treated me for months. However, there were still more hurdles to overcome. The best friend had moved out, which meant we had less money, and we now had to meet the landlord because of all the issues, including the police involvement. So about 2 days later, we had to meet with the landlord. The conversation did not go well. He was displeased with what was happening at the house and announced that he was going to evict us. Honestly, my father was the only reason we remained. He had done a great deal of work for the landlord, so the landlord was more inclined to let us stay if my father signed a new agreement with us. It was not the best arrangement, to be honest. Rent increased by $150 and we were required to pay a $1,000 deposit. I was living paycheck to paycheck and I was sure Ashton was as well. Returning home, I felt exhausted and eager to sleep. Before I dozed off, the two of them entered my room to express that we would figure everything out regardless of the situation. With that, I fell asleep and they left. About an hour later, I was awakened by a phone call. It was my mother, so I answered. She inquired if I knew where Ashton and Sarah were. I replied that I did not, and she shared a shocking revelation. They had discovered where the best friend's mother was and had started confronting the best friend about paying next month's rent, also demanding an additional sum. At that moment, I broke down. I suppose the stress of everything combined with my exhaustion caused me to cry uncontrollably. I got up, packed a small bag of clothes, and requested my mother to pick me up while sobbing intensely. That was when I decided to live with my father instead of dealing with them any further. If you thought it was all over, this train wreck still had plenty of momentum. Since I had left almost all of my belongings there while the best friend had taken the few things he owned, we decided to return to retrieve our belongings. Naturally, I asked my father to accompany me in case anything chaotic occurred. It started off calmly. I began loading my things into my father's car while the best friend loaded his truck. It was only at the very end that things took a turn for the worse. I was in my room, gathering everything into my arms when I heard a yell. Apparently, Sarah charged at the best friend, slammed into him, and began hitting him while he was on the ground. My father intervened just as I arrived. Sarah was hurling insults at him, blaming him for everything. Thankfully, nothing further occurred, and that marked the conclusion of the chaos. The only thing that transpired afterward was that they left the house in disarray, meaning my father had to clean it up. That concludes the bizarre situation we all found ourselves in. Honestly, that entire experience affected me for a long time. I felt depressed and lacked motivation for an extended period. Fortunately, I have since improved significantly. Thank you for taking the time to read this lengthy, rambling post about a distressing situation. Story 4. At 21, I'm drowning in a sea of chaos, torn between I'm just trying to fit in and what's wrong with me. From stealing 3,000 from my mom to hanging with gangbangers, I've ruined every good thing in my life. Can I break this cycle, or am I doomed to repeat my mistakes? This is more of a rant. I have so many thoughts in my head, so I apologize if this is unorganized and chaotic. I'm not sure how to approach this without sharing my entire life story. I realize that I might miss some context, jump around, or forget some important details, but I am trying to understand myself and why I behave the way I do, as well as why my life feels like a complete mess. I am a 21-year-old male and have completely ruined anything good that has ever happened to me due to my greed, jealousy, pride, and various other factors. Additionally, I struggle with a serious issue related to stealing that I would like to discuss. During my adolescent years, I often found ways to leave home, and when I did, I surrounded myself with people who were not the best influences: gang members, drug dealers, and so on. This period lasted from about ages 9 to 12, and it was during this time that I developed a habit of stealing and became somewhat of a troublemaker. Growing up without the things that other kids had exacerbated my tendency to steal. I was caught once when I was 12, marking my first experience being in the back of a police car. However, I did not learn my lesson. By the time I was 14, I had moved to a better neighborhood with a more positive environment, but I still carried my old habits. I performed poorly in grammar school yet managed to pass, perhaps because they just wanted me gone as I was a significant troublemaker. Throughout 1st to 8th grades, I frequently found myself in confrontations or trouble, receiving at least one suspension every year. It got so bad that even when I did something right, I would still be blamed. Nothing ever seemed to go my way. My classmates ridiculed me for lacking what they had, which affected me deeply. I tried hard to fit in and make others like me, and it became so desperate that I even stole from my family to buy things that I thought would help me fit in or be better. I remember one instance in grammar school when I stole 3,000 from my mother and spent it on who knows what, trying to look cool among my classmates. Even then, it didn't work, maybe for just a few days. I literally squandered it on Lego sets, toys, and games, giving them away just to try to fit in, but I did not learn my lesson. When I got caught, I saw how devastated and broken my mother was. At that moment, I did not grasp the severity of my actions, and all I could focus on was how to fit in and be cool while watching my mother break down, which was truly horrible of me. I feel so ashamed now. My mother has shown me so much unconditional love, yet sometimes I can be a terrible son. After all that, I still did not change and only got worse. I got involved with substances and started stealing more than just money. My mother almost sent me to military school, which, in hindsight, perhaps she should have. By the time I reached 8th grade, I was still stuck in my old ways, doing even more irresponsible things, antagonizing others, abusing substances, and so on. Perhaps it was simply a quest for attention, I am not sure. When I finally began to make real friends, I developed the bad habit of borrowing money from people to buy things I really wanted, all the while knowing I could not afford them or repay them promptly, and sometimes not at all. I also stole from my family once again to support my hobbies, which were mainly focused on bicycles. Everyone had cool $1,000 bikes while I rode a cheap steel bicycle at the beginning. Once again, the consequences of my actions caught up with me. I lost those few real friends, lost a friend I had not yet made, lost connections, lost the trust of my family, and lost so much more. Yet I still did not learn my lesson. Starting my freshman year, I found a way to make good money, and because of that, I finally had many people who liked me, which is what I had always desired. However, I still had the inclination to steal and deceive not just money, but even a pack of candy, a box of Legos, or clothing, even though at that point I could afford them. I was making good money weekly, managed to acquire a nice car, and many other things. Yet I still found myself wanting to steal or take advantage of situations I knew were immoral. I managed to suppress those urges, but then, of course, after a year and a half of what felt like the best time of my life, COVID-19 happened. I lost my way to earn money, and in trying to maintain my status, I began deceiving people out of their money and possessions. As time passed, people understandably caught on, and once again my reputation was ruined. I betrayed people I never thought I would see again, thinking that it would never come back to haunt me, but it did. When people say the world is small, they are absolutely right. Everyone somehow knows someone or something, or in some way is connected. I still have yet to understand why I feel compelled to engage in such behavior, and while I have made significant improvements, it has been almost 2 years since I have deceived or stolen from someone, though that might not be the whole truth. I have managed to restrain myself as I am tired of facing the consequences of my actions. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I possess numerous bad habits, characteristics, and traits, including extreme selfishness, which I think is true. I tell myself that I care about others and how they feel, yet in the back of my mind, something tells me to ignore them and focus solely on myself, believing I am better. What I don't understand about myself is that I care deeply about how people perceive me and my status, but I could not care less about them or how they feel. I often find myself seeking to be the center of attention, where I end up fabricating lies or false stories to appear cooler or better than I truly am. I cannot figure out why I engage in this behavior. Additionally, I struggle to converse with others. I try to participate in discussions, but words often go in one ear and out the other. What occupies my thoughts is honestly, I don't care about what you're saying, I want to discuss what I want to discuss, even though I genuinely wish to listen. I find it hard to concentrate on what others are saying. Another problem I have is my inability to set priorities. For example, I know I have bills and debts to pay, but I often prioritize spending money on trivial materialistic items to impress others, and I sometimes don't even feel like I am doing it for myself, but rather to portray someone I'm not. I have been grappling with the idea of seeing a psychiatrist, as people around me suggest there is something wrong with me, potentially symptoms of attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, borderline personality disorder, or who knows what. One thing I want to mention is that I have been addicted to marijuana for perhaps the last 5 to 6 years, and that has certainly affected my life as well, contributing to horrible memory loss, forgetting simple things, and an overall negative lifestyle. I struggle to take care of my belongings. I am constantly losing things, disorganized, and just overall all over the place. I want to understand the trauma that has shaped me into who I am today. Am I truly an awful human being? Am I experiencing the karma I deserve for my actions? I am fearful of falling back into my bad habits and spiraling downward for the rest of my life. If any additional context is needed, please feel free to ask. There is much more to my story than just this.